Our collective mindset is narrowing. What if learning another language opens it back up?
The more that we understand the world around us through another language, the closer we're all going to be to world peace.
When fear reigns, curiosity is stifled.
Language learning can open your mind.
After decades of learning and coaching, Kerstin Cable, language expert, business mentor, podcaster, and co-founder of AI Language Club, turned her life's work into tools anyone can use.
Keep it very experimental and keep your mind open to trying lots and lots of different things.
But beware of the gamification that mistakes streaks for fluency.
A lot of people who do Duolingo and get really good at it become really good at Duolingo. But they want to get really good at Spanish or French. So the useless sentences are useless because you can't map them onto real life.
When drills stop sinking to life, AI becomes an essential training partner.
I'm very fond of the opportunities and the potential of things like ChatGPT, Gemini. One of the advantages of AI, you just don't get judged.
Kerstin realized that becoming fluent in another language doesn't involve parroting, but recognizing patterns and accepting your mistakes.
Immersion is a little bit of a misnomer and an illusion.
Identity travels in our voices, making us unique.
It's deep stuff. Language is identity. Language is people.
But the world judges how some people sound.
African American vernacular English, not always considered as educated. Why is that? There's oppression in that.
If you want to learn a new language and expand your mind, ditch the old script. Build a plan, not a streak. If a listener with limited time and money wants to have conversation ability, say in 6 to 12 months, what's the simplest plan you would set out for them?
What I have learned and what tends to work is...
Before we get into the episode, I got a quick favor to ask. Over 90% of the people that watch the podcast do not subscribe. Subscribing is just a small action that can go a long way for the show to reach more eyes and ears. If you can click that subscribe button, it's greatly appreciated and it'll help the show a lot. Thank you. Hi, Kerstin. Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been so easy, such a pleasure to organize this, and I'm so excited as well to be on your show, so quite looking forward to it.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So you are a language learning expert and coach and polyglot. Why is knowing how to speak multiple languages important to you?
Well, I didn't grow up with English as my native language, so my first answer would just be, if English isn't your native language, then you know why it's important. Then I don't have to answer that question. Only English native speakers would ask this question.
Interesting. Okay.
It is just essential from a global language perspective. But then there is something else as well. There is something deeper as well. There is careers benefit. There is about connecting with other people. A lot of people learn a language to travel, maybe with ambitions like not wanting to embarrass themselves. And that is still quite on the superficial level. And then when I work with people, when somebody comes to a language coach, they're pretty serious. They're not just on Duolingo. When I work with people, they always have deeper reasons than just the superficial, I need to pass a test or something like that. It's always about something closer to your identity and about what it means to you to do something hard, and to do something intellectually hard and intellectually demanding, because learning a language is not easy. It's not easy to feel really like you're in control and like you can actually do stuff in your target language. And that will happen again and again in no matter how many languages you study. So it's kind of also about, it's the same reason people run marathons, for example. It's about taking yourself to a limit and having that personal challenge and enjoying your personal achievement and progress along that challenge. It's about intellectual curiosity. And then there is a part inside of me that deeply, deeply believes that the more that we understand the world around us through another language, the closer we're all going to be, no kidding, to world peace.
I agree. That's definitely a theme here that I'm trying to explore on this podcast is, within our world right now, it seems like people are just pulling in and shrinking away from the world, when really the answer is actually the opposite, is to actually get out there, see the world, meet new people, experience new
Yeah.
cultures, and like it'll open your mind, and you'll just realize like one of the common things a lot of people say is, you know, everybody they kind of meet, no matter where they are in the world, they kind of all just want the same thing. They just want like peace and prosperity, and but it just seems like our world just kind of wants to other, you know, each other and separate each other. So that's interesting that you see language learning as a way to like really bring about a more peaceful world. That's
I strongly believe that. There's also something that you've just made me think about, which is that language learning is very humbling. You know, when we talk about doing hard things and its achievement, it's very much, and you talked about going into you know, like countries kind of going into themselves, and people, maybe we've got more tendencies towards nationalism the last decade with lots of countries, and there's sort of that element of finding security in not having that contact and not having that vulnerability, that there might be something out there that you don't know. And I think that is something that really language learning puts you in contact with, and it gives you that vulnerability and can, just exactly like you say, open your mind in that way. So it's a wonderful thing to be doing.
Yeah, I will admit I started to do Spanish. And I stuck with it. I stuck with it for 6 months. Yeah, I live in Belize, so it's like one of the kind of 3 languages that's spoken here. So the English is the national language here, which makes things a lot easy, especially for a move abroad, and especially coming into like Latin America or the Caribbean. Belize kind of straddles both those kind of worlds. So Spanish is like I would say it's like the unofficial, you know, first language sort of here. A lot of people speak it, and then Creole is the third language. So I did start learning it, but I'll admit I have fallen off the wagon, and it's something that I definitely want to pick back up again.
Hey, you're still learning. You're just taking a break.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Good way to look at it. For people like myself who just like can't seem to find the time, do you have any like tips for them on what they can do to sort of like recreate that habit or form that new habit and just get into language learning again and more consistent?
Yes, absolutely. It's such an interesting question. There are so many different ways of approaching it. There are so many different ways of starting it. So really, my first tip would be to keep it very experimental and keep your mind open to trying lots and lots of different things. And if there's something that you think is fun, just keep doing it. Keep doing more of it, because there's no way of learning wrong. One of my kind of things that I always say, as a tip for learning a language, is I call it daily contact. And that doesn't mean daily study. You literally just want daily contact, so that your streak shouldn't be in Duolingo or in like a screen this big. Your streak should be somewhere in your environment that keeps your mind kind of active and engaged. For me, for the last 10 years, I have learned Welsh, and I don't live in a Welsh speaking environment at all. And I don't necessarily have the daily contact myself. But I do make an effort to text my friend in Welsh. I follow a few accounts. I will watch a show, in Welsh, because we've got access to their TV channel, and every now and then they do a good drama, so we can do that. And then I'll take a class, then I'll read an article, and then I subscribe to a newsletter that sends me the news. And I just get little bits here and there and here and there and here and there. And that all adds up together. So you don't have to just do one resource. It's really about having that plan that guides you, but really gently, and gives you an awful lot of flexibility. So everything that I have done in terms of what I've developed and the studies I've done, so I've looked into learning science, but also motivation in adult learners. It really is about finding that it's called intrinsic motivation. So finding the thing that actually makes you want to have fun with it. It's not enough for you to sit there thinking, oh, I should really do Spanish because people around me speak Spanish. But you don't really need to. You don't really maybe want to. It's not about the time. Trust me. It's not about the time. It's about, well, I kind of don't want to do it. It's the same as I'm in a I'm in a guitar club and I'm learning the guitar. And sometimes I will sit at home and going, oh, I've got half an hour. I should really practice that song. But I kind of don't want to. Like, I don't want to have to sit down and focus. I don't want to think about chords. I don't want to get the guitar out. I know that if I did get the guitar out, I'd enjoy it, but I just don't because I can watch television or something. So it really is a case of staying accountable to yourself. And if you don't internally want to do it, you'll find a way around it. So sometimes it doesn't have to be, I want to learn a language. Maybe it's just, I want to challenge myself in this way. Right? And if that's, challenge yourself to just do it, set yourself a little 30-day challenge or something like that. The same way that you might have done, I don't know, a meditation challenge a lot of people do, or a run a mile a day for 30 days. Do something like that, right? And just treat it like this little productivity challenge almost, and then see what comes out of it. Because you might just get into it and feel like, this is really cool. I'm having fun again.
Yeah, that's that's a great way to look at it. And I think, kind of reflecting on my abandonment, or my temporary abandonment of learning Spanish, it was definitely, I think, it's not necessary here for Belize, right? So it was just a matter of, kind of doing something that was challenging. And I've essentially replaced that with doing this podcast is really what then has now, that's become my focus, but I'm a lot more motivated to do that. And I'm learning lots, doing this about interviewing and in the tech and everything behind it. But that kind of makes sense. It gives me a little bit more clarity on why I haven't maybe stuck with it. But I do it's definitely something I want to get back into. And I was using Duolingo. And I know that you've been a little bit critical of Duolingo, and that you said, I think I read somewhere, I think it was on your website, that it teaches useless phrases. And that was definitely something that I noticed when I was using it, that it would teach me these things that I, to say, like these very basic sentences. But when I would go say, like, look on YouTube, or watch, like, sometimes my kids watch Spanish speaking shows and stuff like that, I would just think, this is nothing like what I'm learning. Like, and I didn't understand how what Duolingo was teaching me was really mapping onto the actual language of Spanish. It just seemed like there was this big gap. So why does Duolingo take the approach it does? Like, and where do their platforms fall short? Like, what, why are they teaching the way they do, when really, like, it doesn't seem to, at least early on, it doesn't really seem to translate literally into how you speak it.
To a certain extent, there's also a large variety in the different teaching methods between Duolingo courses. So some of the answers, I'm not a Duolingo engineer. I've never worked with Duolingo, and I'm certainly not going to say it's a bad system. People love Duolingo. The internet will burn me down if I say it's bad. It's not bad, but so number one is you've got the restriction of the format. And the format is kind of designed really it's a really great habit builder. It's a really great, like, keep doing this, set up your streak. So a lot of people who do Duolingo and get really good at it become really good at Duolingo. Mm-hmm. But they want to get really good at Spanish or French, but they get really good at Duolingo. And some of that is the format, in the sense of, you've got to break down the different components of the language. So different grammatical structures, for example, into the format that the app can handle, and then break it down into little bite-sized pieces that will actually make sense to a learner. And for you as a learner, because there aren't many explanations, you will sort of start putting a few connections together. But I believe that explanations at the right time, for an adult learner in particular, because adults want to understand the world around them, are used to understanding the world around them, and easily have got the cognitive capacity to understand some grammar rules, is actually super useful, right? So at the point where Duolingo takes you to a high, well, let's not call it high, but like an intermediate level, I think it's so great to supplement then, at the very latest, with a tutor or with some really cool AI stuff. I'm weirdly, like, I'm not anti-tech. As much as I've always been skeptical about apps, I'm very fond of, and I'm very positive about the opportunities and the potential of things like ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot. You can get a lot out of those. They're amazing. So you kind of want, at that point, at the very latest, like at the very latest, like halfway through the skill tree, you want to actually understand what is going on. So the useless sentences are useless, not because they're necessarily badly designed, because they might teach you a grammar point very subtly, but because exactly how you say it, you can't map them onto real life. So for you as a learner, that's where you start getting a disconnect between what you're actually trying to learn in the real world and what is in your phone. And at that point, it's not that useful anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seemed like it was just a lot of just like words. They wanted to like pile on the words to you, and I was just like, I'd rather just like have a better understanding of how to use a more basic set of words first, and I find it just kind of pushed you along real quick. Words, and then at some point,
you'd love a little bit of grammar.
And at some point, I was like, I feel like I missed something along the lines of like tenses and and just the grammatical base to it, and I think that it contributed to me sort of being like, oh, okay, I'm setting this aside. Again, this is a little bit of an excuse, but it's
no, but you don't if you've never done a language before, you don't know then where to look. So for me, this is a lot easier, because I would just be like, okay, I need some information about how to build the past tense in Spanish. Let me go and look it up, because I know where I'm looking, because I have learned and taught languages most of my life. But for a new language learner who doesn't know, like, there is a future tense, there's usually a continuous, there's usually a participle and a blah blah subjunctive, like all those words. It's like if somebody comes to my vinyasa class where the lady only ever says all the names of the words of the poses in Sanskrit, and they're like, what does that mean? What does that mean? It's like, oh, that's the one where you put your leg here and you do this and this and this. You need somebody to explain that to you. Otherwise, it's all just like, what? Asana? What? There's this huge gap. And I think, we can't ignore that. And I think actually for my adult language learners, immersion is nice, but it's a little bit of a misnomer and an illusion, because people think that means you just parrot everything until you know it, when the more efficient way to learn is actually to understand the structures. You don't need to parrot for the rest of your life, because you're not that dumb. Dumb is a bad boy choice of word there. But you're so much more capable, and your brain wants that capability to get used.
And what does language learning do for our brains?
Oh, this is a really interesting one. Okay, so there are some studies, limited studies. We don't know exactly, because we don't really know what happens in the brain with most things, right? But what we do know, or at least what I know, not being a neuroscientist, is that there are some evidence that language learning does do good things for, is it called neuroplasticity? Which basically means the health of your brain, and the risk of neurodegenerative diseases, stuff like dementia, Alzheimer's, that will decrease, because you're building connections in your brain, and you're using different areas, and you're storing memory in different areas, and you're doing a lot with your long-term and your short-term memory. So that's very interesting, and it's also absolutely excellent cognitive training, because processing what somebody is saying to you and replying to them in a completely different code at speed as you would in a conversation, that is cognitively so demanding.
Yeah, it's from what I guess the Duolingo app is like kind of pushes that kind of stuff, which is good, right? It's but yeah, I wanted to get a little bit more of a technical opinion on it from you, because as somebody who lives this on a daily basis. So you mentioned AI, and you're developing some AI language programming. Is that correct?
It's training, essentially, or it's so Me and my friend Josh, we got together about 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago. And he is a UN accredited interpreter who does a lot of tech training for interpreters and translators. And I am obviously a language learning expert. And between us, we were going to do a fun, maybe 1 hour training on ideas for using AI to learn languages. And in the prep for it, I sat down, I thought, okay, what are we going to teach? How are we going to structure this? And it was more and more and more great ideas, and it was more and more fun. And that was my ideas. And then I started talking to Josh. And then I said to him, this is not an hour's training. This is impossible. This feels like a membership community, like we've got 60 ideas going on here. And we decided to just go with it and kind of bite the bullet and build this little membership community. And we did that. It's called AI Language Club. So we have no intention at this point of programming some kind of app. Of course, we're going to play with custom GPTs 100% because we do love what the AI companies are offering us. But really, we just wanted to look at things that are beneficial for learners, offer language learning in interesting ways, work at different levels for any language, because one of the great things about generative language models is that they work in so many languages and that they give you natural language and they can adapt to your level, like at a button push. So we wanted to create lots and lots of different ideas and share them with language learners so that we can motivate people to just go out and try one little thing. Like here is a little exercise. We came up with ways of, it could be playing 20 questions, use these prompts, and we always try out the prompts. So if you've used AI tools, you'll know that it never quite does what you want. So we actually experiment with the prompts until we get them right. So we save people that time and then teach it and show people how to do it. And we don't have our own app. We use ChatGPT, like I said, Copilot. We've got a few extra tools that we teach, say a really good transcription tool that was so useful for language learning, a really good AI voice tool, maybe something like Suno, a song creator. So you can create your own songs in Spanish. You can write I wrote Josh a birthday song once in 3 languages. I created for him. You could do a song together with your kids. And it's just this fun little exercise. So we're giving people new ideas. We're doing 2 new ideas a month. We do open language practices. And it's, like I said, we've been doing this for 2 years. And it's just so fun to bring all these new ideas in and see people try it out.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that's sort of like back to what you initially said, is how you just need like daily exposure, right? So this is like increases your way that you can expose yourself to the new language without necessarily just sitting down and learning words or learning grammar or something, right?
Yeah. Well, you will learn words and grammar. You don't have to, set out to learn them. If you've got the contact, you automatically learn them. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned how the prompts don't always do what you want them to do. I've been, using or, playing around with ChatGPT since essentially it came out in 2022. So I've sort of come to like realize some of the, the follies of it and how it kind of has a tendency to like drift from what, you can get it on a task and it'll just sort of eventually, as you're working through, it just kind of drifts away from like what you're actually trying to achieve. What do you do? Or what's your process for like making sure that these models, stay on task?
I have experienced the problem you describe in my own usage of AI. I would say I'm probably quite a heavy ChatGPT user. And I have not experienced that so much with AI language tutorials. And I think because they are bite-sized. They really don't go into depth. We don't iterate 17 times over and over because we don't want people to feel like it's a lot of work. So we tend to maybe offer with like a few variations of, you could also try this or that. But if somebody wants to go more into depth, we tend to show them related tutorials for something slightly different that they can try. So I would say most of the ways that we offer people one of the exercises, and you can really get a lot of value out of those, then they don't tend to be longer. The instruction videos are never longer than 10 minutes, and we don't really tend to go more than 4 levels deep, I would say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So well, that's great then, because the last thing you would want is one of these things, one of these prompts like leading, like, or just providing wrong information, right?
Probably the most complex one I've done is we taught live challenges in the summer. So I taught a live challenge about mnemonics. Do you know what mnemonics are?
You have to refresh me on the term. Yeah.
Don't worry, no, it's fine. So mnemonics is just about little memory tricks, basically, or memory hooks that you can make. So if you want to go super fancy, you go and do memory palace. I think I'm too lazy to do that. It's very effective, but I can't be bothered. So, but there are different ways that you can memorize vocabulary that are super, super useful. You can build like associated imagery, or you could do linguistic roots. So you will remember Spanish words so much more easily if you understand which English word they relate to. You know, or when you're learning German, at some point it's super helpful to understand that when in German you have got a D, in English it's often a TH in a word that is, if we stretch and twist it a little bit, is actually just the same word, and you can start becoming a bit of a word detective. Keeps you more interested. Brilliant for memory, because you don't actually have to remember as much. You're linking it to something you already know. So these kinds of things on mnemonics. Turns out ChatGPT is amazing at these, but I was teaching it day by day by day by day. And you can either stay in the same conversation, but the way I taught it was to create a table, right? And then export it as a CSV. So that the next day you can start a new chat, you can re-import it, but you're starting from the information and you're always adding. So you're asking for a new column to be added every day of the challenge, essentially. So you're slowly building up your table with different ways of building that memory hook. And that worked fairly well. Some of our more tech challenged participants, I think, were a little bit like, I do what with a CSV? What is a CSV? So we cater to every level of, honestly, we cater to every level of tech comfort, really, or confidence. But for most people, that worked very well. And that would be a way that you can sneak through. So, yeah.
So this is like essentially like coaching people on how to use AI to like for like their own like almost like self-teaching process.
100%, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's really.
A lot of our members are also teachers who might get inspired by some of the ideas, but yeah, if you're a self-student, that's exactly it. And the idea is to give you something that you can, like you've got 20 minutes, and you just have a little bit of a play.
Right on. I'm gonna check this out a little bit more, in depth, because
come along. It's really cool.
This definitely sounds like a little bit more appealing to me than just going back to Duolingo. I just don't feel like I can kind of do that if I'm going to pick up Spanish again. One more question about AI is: do you ever experience, like, does it hallucinate anything? Does it ever just like make up grammatical rules or anything like that? I find that the hallucinations aren't as bad as they used to be. They used to be like in the early days, it was kind of like all the time. You had to always be double checking, and now it's not as. It's more. I find what it hallucinates is like sources. So if you ask it to give a source, it kind of links to something that's not.
Doesn't exist. Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily exist, or it's like not in. You click on the link and it goes to like nothing. That's actually what it's saying it is. But do you find? Have you discovered any sort of like hallucinations that it does in regard to language learning or teaching language learning?
I love your questions. This is a great question. All your questions are so good.
Oh,
it's really deep. I can't say I've not. I can't say I haven't seen it. Do stupid things. Like sometimes if you're doing an exercise, so one of the exercises I recently taught was how to predict word gender, and how you can, play around with a few of the AI tools, particularly with focus on word gender. You'll know as a Spanish student, like how on earth are you supposed to know? Is this word And then because there are rules in most languages, so in Spanish, if a word ends in ION, it's always feminine and all that kind of stuff. Or miento is masculine, whatever it is. I wanted to teach that. And in some of the more complex, when you ask it for example sentences, it wasn't changing the gender of a word. But I think I once saw it do, oh God, this is the most nitpicky thing. It did a Welsh mutation wrong, right? So Welsh is my target language. A mutation is one of the ways that an adjective can change based on the noun gender. This is very nerdy and boring. It did it wrong. It shouldn't do that. That's bad. I have never seen it, however, and I'll be 100% honest here. I've worked a lot with textbooks written by, experts that should be edited properly, that you pay £40 for, $50, and then they've got a massive answer key at the back, and you look up at the answer key, and there's still mistakes there, and it still doesn't always make sense. And you still go, what? Like, what does this mean? Am I going to write to the editor now? No, I won't. So I have not seen it at a level worse than that. Mm-hmm. It is a lot better, more reliable, the more it has eaten in your target language.
Yeah.
So at a point where you're doing, if you were doing Cree or Manx or, something, languages where there just isn't as much internet. So I can imagine maybe say Wolof, like it's a language from Senegal, or African languages. These languages are spoken by hundreds of, think Guarani from Paraguay. These are spoken by hundreds of thousands of people, but there might not be as reliable AI about it. So I've not seen it to an extent where I would say, this is too bad, I can't teach with this. Mm-hmm. Never. And I wouldn't overlook that. And I've seen it make up, when we've done some of the cultural tutorials, because we don't just teach language, we also teach things like etiquette. How you can have a conversation and find a little bit more about like politeness in your target language and how that shows in linguistics, things you can say to be polite, etc. We'll do a little bit of travel guide stuff and travel phrases. So when I've done cultural research about festivals, it once made up a film about a festival, and I was so excited. And I was like, Josh, I can't wait to teach this. And he says, don't you think this is a bit too perfect? And I was like, but look, there is a film poster. And he said, yeah, that film poster is AI generated. And I didn't even clock. So very frustrating, but it didn't invent the festival, and the language around it was fine. So I accept personally that there are flaws, 100%. I just think for what we're trying to do here, which is communicate and have fun, the benefits outweighs those flaws really by a ton.
Yeah. That's I can totally see that. Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah, sorry, quite a rambling answer there.
No. I'm just there's a lot there, and there's like other things I want to touch on. I'm just trying to determine where I want to go next with it. You've mentioned Welsh now a few times. How did you get into Welsh? Because that's not like a very common, it's not a huge language base in the world, right? It's not like a Spanish or English or even Chinese or something, right? Can you explain a little bit about what Welsh is, where it originates, and why you kind of fell in love with it?
Mm-hmm. So Welsh is the original language of Wales. Wales is one of the nations of the United Kingdom. So we've got England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. Scotland also has a language. Wales is Celtic in origin. It's related to a few other Celtic languages. You might also be in America. You might also be familiar with Irish. It's sort of a cousin of Irish.
Is Gaelic something similar?
Yeah, Gaelic.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've got Gaelic, and then you've got Scots Gaelic, and then you've got Welsh, and then a few smaller ones like Cornish and one that's spoken in France, Breton. But that's the same family. It's random.
Okay. There's a little bit of that in Canada on the East Coast in Cape Breton Island. They have
makes sense.
there's I guess like it's Gaelic. They have like signs in Gaelic and stuff like that, and it's like I guess an old Scottish, I think, community that once lived there, but they like kind of imported that culture there, and it's still fairly strong.
I need to go. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And Welsh is also spoken in a small sort of enclave in Argentina called Ruladva. That's in Patagonia, and it's just a lot of people emigrated there, and the language survived. So it was a kind of embattled language, especially in the middle of the 20th century. And it had this little like protest movement to get it going. So Welsh actually has a really cool, has a protest history. That's super, super interesting. For me, it's a really beautiful language. It isn't the language that you will encounter in most streets in Wales, probably. But you do hear it spoken. And there is a lot of kind of original Welsh culture that is really being looked after and celebrated. So I think for the community that it has, it's just an amazing language. And for me personally, I think it's beautiful. I think it just makes me happy that I get to learn, I get to speak this language. I started it about 10 years ago and did various bits and bobs of self-study. Every now and then took a class. So at the moment, I'm taking weekly classes. And I'm at refresher level, they call it. So according to the books, I'm doing pretty well. Every year I go to Wales maybe 2, 3, 4 times. Either I'll take a lovely beach holiday because it's gorgeous there, or I volunteer at a festival where Welsh is spoken as the first language. So I really get to engage in the community and have fun, see some bands and stuff.
Oh, very cool. And what originally brought you then from, because you're originally from Germany, correct? And then you moved to the UK. So what prompted you to make that move? And
I am the age where exactly you'd be a teenager when Britpop was a big thing in the UK.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever heard of Britpop. It's like Blur, Oasis, and there's a band called Pulp, and they were my favorite band in the world. I'm such a fan. I'm wearing my Pulp t-shirt today. You can see.
So that's what? That's like 90s, early 2000s.
Very 90s, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're probably around
myself, but yeah, it's.
we're probably around
in the 90s.
Age, actually.
I grew up in a tiny German village. I knew I wanted to leave anyway, or it was just, I always thought I would leave. There isn't really much there. And I just became sort of obsessed with England as a teenager and really, really wanted to go. And eventually moved to the UK. Did a year of studies here, did my master's here. And then it's not a very incredibly exciting story. Like, got a boyfriend, moved into a house with boyfriend, married to boyfriend now. And just lived here. Yeah. So it's one of those things where I'm not nomadic, I've found, but I've always loved traveling, and I wanted to move to England and at some point manifest. Yeah.
Well, being in Europe, I feel like it's gives you the opportunity to kind of move around a little bit easier than other places, right? There's proximity to so many other countries, and just the ease in which the European Union kind of allows people to move around and stuff.
Yeah, at the time I came, the UK was still a member of the European Union.
Right. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
right.
they did the stupid idea of Brexit, but it was very easy to come here. It was great.
So then, do you guys not have that same mobility anymore then, or?
No, my next time I go and see my family, I think my husband will have to get like a sort of 90-day visa or something like that.
Oh.
And certainly he won't be able to just move to Germany and work there in the same way. And people now need visas or work permits or whatever it is. For me, I took on both nationalities for easier life and for a little bit feeling more secure, because obviously half my life is here, but all of my family is at home.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to be able to move freely and settle wherever I need to.
Okay, cool. So you got dual citizenship.
Adjustment. Yeah, citizenship.
Oh,
Took
cool.
the test and everything.
Oh, nice. Very cool. What's that process like? How long does that take?
It took me probably about half a year, I would say.
Oh.
So, because it's a kind of special case because of Brexit, right? Because I came as a European Union person, so I had a lot of rights, and they can't just take your rights away. I mean, they could, but luckily they didn't.
Yeah.
And so what they did was invent something called the settled status, which you would get if you've been here for 5 years. So you have to do an awful lot of paperwork, an awful lot of showing where did you work, when did you come, what did you study, what was your addresses in all the time you've lived here. So there's a lot of paperwork for me, having been here 20-something years.
Oh, yeah.
And once you have the settled status, because I was already married to somebody from here, I could apply right away for citizenship. So settled status is the same as leave to remain or something like that, like a green card maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's kind of the first step. And then the process is a lot of paperwork, a lot of money paying, a lot of waiting, probably some criminal background checks, no idea. And then you have to study for this test, take this test. For me, I didn't have to do the language requirement because I already have a degree, have like a master's from a British university. So that's proof enough. What else? And then at some point you have to go and do an interview. But I thought that was quite nice. You just have to do a chat. And I remember coming home, my husband said, "How was it? Was it scary?" And I said, "No, I just got to talk about myself for an hour. It's great." Like a podcast interview.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like a similar process to here, just with like residencies and stuff like that in Belize.
It's just a lot of red tape.
Yeah,
you got to do it.
A bureaucratic process, right? Essentially, you just kind of gotta jump through the hoops that they.
There's no way around it, I don't think.
Yeah. So you've mentioned that anybody with any budget can learn a language. So if a listener wants to have conversation ability, say in 6 to 12 months, with limited time and money, what's the simplest plan you would like set out for them?
I'd want to know what language they want to learn, but assuming that they want to do, say, Spanish, there are an awful lot of free resources online. There is also probably a library near you, which I would not advise you to completely neglect. You know, go check it out. Do get something. I don't know. I'm a bit old school, so I'm pen and paper. I am a print girly. I think it's quite useful to just have different media, not just throw everything the internet has at yourself. Have a bit of a structure. I teach something I call the language habit system, which is basically you want to have good goals. You want to have your core skills covered. Your core skills are listening, reading, speaking, and writing. Right? So think about what you're doing every week. Do you have all of your 4 core skills covered somehow a little bit? And just having that accountability for yourself is very, very helpful. You may be a person who wants external accountability. In that case, get a tutor. If you're short on budget, get yourself a speaking partner. You can do exchanges where if you're an English native speaker, typically there's someone out there who wants to learn your language, and you'll be able to do half an hour in this language, half an hour in that language. And then that's typically free. Or get a tutor. Tutors are great. And you may be somebody who is more intrinsically motivated, etc. So then I would advise really thinking about your goals. So you've mentioned, living in Belize, having kids, etc. So I might think, wouldn't it be cool if you could go to the beach with your kids, buy an ice cream from someone in Spanish, know all the words for the different ice cream flavors, like whatever it is, like your kid to teach you something, like send them out and learn all the colors. They learn all the colors, you learn all the numbers, you teach each other. There is so much fun you can have together. So really don't treat it as this like individual, I must do this. Treat it as something to have fun with, to play with. It's okay to be crap at it. I think my secret weapon is that I enjoy being bad at something. So guitar, languages, I don't mind. And then, if you have got a small budget, I can't do this without doing a little bit of self-promo. Please come and join AI Language Club because it's only $9 a month. And a lot of the tools you're probably already using. And you get free access to them.
Nice. Yeah, that's some great advice in there. Yeah, there's things there I just never even really thought about. Yeah, like finding a language partner. That seems like so. Are there groups online and stuff that like where people kind of like say, hey, I want to learn whatever language, and someone else says, oh, I want to learn English, and you can just kind of like pair yourselves up with them?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's great. That's good to know.
Yeah, I've got a blog article about that, and we did a podcast. I don't do my podcast at the moment anymore, but we did a podcast interview with somebody who runs a language exchange group to learn more about that. So if you remind me, I can send you the link to those, and you can pop them in the show notes or research for yourself. Yeah,
no, for sure. So you mentioned kind of you like being bad at things. Like most people may not, and they fear sounding kind of silly in their language learning. I know I definitely felt a little bit like that initially when I started speaking Spanish. But I would just there's a local fruit stand here and the lady speaks Spanish, so I try to practice on her. She was really good with it. But how do you coach people through like the anxiety around just kind of being new and that beginner phase?
So I have a bee in my bonnet. Do you know? Is that a saying in the UK only?
Yeah. Well, we're I'm Canadian. We have like a lot of so we have a lot of those similar phrases and stuff like that.
I have a bee in my bonnet a little bit about people not practicing on somebody who's got like a stand or a ticket office or something like that. But people hold themselves to the standard. They expect that if that doesn't go easy, they think that they're bad at the language. And I think having been a tutor for many years, something that you really, really need to know is it's not that person's job to make you feel good about your language. They're just trying to sell you a flipping melon. They just want you to go away and give you money and give them money. That is literally it. It's just not their job. And a lot of people will do this. Like they'll say, oh, the French is so hard. I went to buy a ticket for the metro in Paris, like in this noisy, busy environment. You're expecting somebody to be like super patient with you when you're cobbling a sentence together. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. This is bad. Like, I think, and a lot of people really judge themselves for the result of that interaction. So I haven't got a problem with somebody wanting to do that. It's awesome. I've done that so many times. But don't think you're bad at it, please, if the person just wants you to go away, because the reason is that's just not their job.
Yeah. So
it's tricky because as a coach, what I say to people when I have worked with, say, introverts, shy introverts, etc. It's not who I am. But what I have learned and what tends to work is, number one, to find someone who is practically a safe space, right? Which, as a tutor, that is your job. Like, create the space where you're literally encouraging people to F it up, to just make as many mistakes as possible. So, and I think it's one of the advantages of AI, a lot of people have said, you just don't get judged. Whatever you do, ChatGPT tells you you're great. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, especially 4.0. It's like the biggest sycophant.
It just loves you, right? No matter what.
Smoke constantly.
So if that's what you need, use it. It's fine. So I would say that is kind of the first thing. Create or find that safe space. A safe human is the best because you want to build up to talking to a human. But even speakers, even people who have coached who have done that, sometimes fall into trusting like one tutor, and then they still can't speak to people outside. So you do have to do some very safe zone pushing, but don't overdo it. Literally just take like one sentence and say to yourself, okay, I'm just going to say this one sentence. I'm going to ask this one question, and then I'll run away again and just see, oh, that wasn't that bad. And then build it up, but still challenge yourself to say more in the other context. So you kind of want to, you have like your little inner world where you can play and your goal is to be crap. And then you've got the outer world where your goal is to just kind of build it up, and understand that speaking, generally production, producing language rather than taking in language and understanding it, it's just slower. Everybody's got the silent period. This is normal.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, the silent period. Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I never heard that. Just returning to how your cultural coaching, I thought that was very interesting because it's something I spoke about in my episode with Gregory Garrison, who's a linguist. And I was just explaining to him how even though here in Belize it's English speaking, it doesn't always, like, there's still a lack of communication. And he explained to me the concept of like high context and low context cultures, and like the way in which that creates like maybe a lack of understanding, or like so is this something that you that you coach your students on, like essentially like a certain culture will be, like they're not as like willing to offer up certain amounts of information, and they're not necessarily being rude. It's, even though it seems to you like they're being rude, it's just like in their culture it's just normal not to just like over offer information.
I think cultural awareness is a key part of language learning, 100%. So you don't have to necessarily go to a coach specifically, but they can help you point out what it is that you're missing, what it is that is making you sometimes feel bad. So I'm German, we're more direct. A lot of people think Germans are impolite. Germans will point out every single mistake you make very often, right? Because it's a culture where accuracy is highly valued.
My wife is German. This makes sense.
They're super critical. Whereas the way that I teach is I don't do that, because in my experience, I have found that there is a level where you overcorrect as a tutor, and you're actually just damaging your student as a result. They've got too much to process and they feel bad. So, and overcorrect, people are like, I want to learn from my German girlfriend / wife. It's like, they're going to correct the heck out of you. It's not going to be fun. It's just, that's a cultural thing. A lot is a cultural thing. So I think awareness really, really matters. And what Gregory, right? He was describing, I think there's an element, there's something called pragmatics, which is about language in use and the sort of things that we expect to happen when we say certain things. So if I say something like, I'm really thirsty, I expect you to go and get me a glass of water, kind of thing. Or something that happens with me and my husband is that I will often say something like, do you want to go and make a cup of tea for us? And I mean, please go and make a cup of tea for us, but I'm phrasing it this way out of like politeness, I guess, to save face. And he often goes, nah. Which, great, okay. Leaves me with nothing to work with, and then I have to be more explicit enough to go, can you please, or something like that. And I don't know if that's a German British thing or just we are that level, that kind of different people thing. He's a developer as well. He's a computer person. So he's used with accuracy again. So there's an element where the cultural awareness is extremely helpful. As a coach, in the terms of me as a one-to-one coach, when you come to me, most of my students, I would say, don't come to me at a level where they are so early on in the journey that they wouldn't know that when, by that point. So I don't have to really teach it, but sometimes I have to remind people, or I just have to say, like, I've had clients who live in Japan. I've never been to Japan, so I have to ask them, how is it different? And in them explaining it to me, they realize what is happening to them. So it's just giving a lot of coaching in that sense, is giving people that space to process and see the connections, rather than having to teach you everything. You already know, probably.
Right on. What part of you changed the most with your language learning? So like your confidence, your worldview, how you relate to Germany.
How I relate to Germany and German changed the most through teaching German. It gave me such an appreciation for German. And I don't know, the logic, the intricacies, the different accents, the different parts of my country. It gave me a real sense of almost being like an ambassador for my country. It was great. It was really good. Every language has done a different thing, so I can't just say like one thing has changed me in different ways. French taught me persistence, because I didn't really love learning French, but it was a case of, I've come this far, for God's sake. And I can speak French now, and that's just through stubbornness. Whereas Welsh taught me kind of joy, taught me a lot about Britain, because especially when you live in England, you only see England, and this is like a different kind of Britain. But even languages that I've long stopped learning taught me a lot of new things, also about myself. So Mandarin, for example, was something I thought would be hard. I thought certain things would be hard. They weren't, but then other things came and completely hit me in the face. You know, like just
one of
stuff.
A recent guest, he speaks, actually, although he never actually mentioned if it was Mandarin or Cantonese that he spoke, but he mentioned that he found like he was able to pick up like the Chinese language, or I assume maybe he was Mandarin, much easier than, say, because he also spoke fluent Japanese. And he said that because the grammatical structure was like closer to English in Chinese than it was to Japanese, which was very different. And I this was like all new to me, which I thought was very interesting. But it was that why you also picked up Chinese a little bit easier? Was it because of similar grammatical structure to like the Germanic languages?
I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't necessarily say so. I don't know any Japanese. Basically no Japanese at all. I remember Chinese word order being like, Chinese word order was not like the word order of anything I'd done before. So it's not a completely different concept. It's just, okay, this is where the noun goes in this one. I've just learned Welsh. They put the noun here. The English put the noun here. The Germans put the noun here. Why do people do this? I don't know. It's like everyone's got, like, you're going into a different room and all the stuff is in different places. And you have to go, what? Why? Why'd you do this? The thing that I found easier than I expected with Mandarin was the tones. I didn't think they were that difficult to learn for me. But that's not something I had learned from a different language before. It's just I like studying pronunciation first. So as a complete beginner, I tend to spend a lot of time on pronunciation, and because that always pays off later on. Always. It's a bit boring, but it really pays off. And the things I found harder were bits where it got a little bit more intricate. So Chinese doesn't. This is so nerdy. Chinese doesn't conjugate, like the words don't change so much based on whether it's I or you or he or whatever. Like the verb doesn't change. Whereas with Spanish, you'll have had to learn endings.
Yeah. There's quite a few of them. Yeah.
Chinese, nope, don't need to do that. But then it does a silly thing where, in my opinion, silly thing, not a silly thing to the Chinese, where if you're counting books, you have to use a different counting word. So like unit of has to have a word, and it's different to if you're counting cows, and that's also a different word to if you're counting, I don't know, people or something like that. And I just thought that was, I just could not study that. I don't know, my head just didn't want to do that. So I wished I could just do that. Whereas what I've learned with something like Welsh, for example, is if you could just kind of skip around that or commit to getting it wrong in a consistent way for the first 2 years, as long as you're not taking exams, just do it wrong. You don't fossilize as much as you think you will. If you're aware that you're getting it wrong constantly and you're going to fix it later, you can fix it later.
Good. Yeah, that's good. Good advice. Yeah. You mentioned accents. How do you teach like people how to navigate accents? And because I know that it can kind of like.
In German, I have. In German, I have created full pronunciation courses, full on, because the pronunciation of German is quite consistent, and there are lots of little bits where once you know them, is just like, it'll tell you how the word is spelled. Then you can see the word in your head, and then suddenly you're like, oh, that means this. It's just so useful. It's incredible. Accent itself, no, I've never done that. I've never done like how to sound more like this in English or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've done some research into and thought about my stance on accent reduction, and I just don't believe that there is one correct accent. I think we ought to be quite permissive in that way, really. So I don't think there is a wrong accent, and I would not want to teach the correct accent. That's not within my values, I think.
Yeah, I guess, and that goes to like just being culturally like accepting and expanding your mind, right? That just the accents are just like unique characteristics of languages, and there's nothing right
and
or
there's
wrong.
A lot of when you think about it, for example, with English, there is a lot of kind of latent, like often this comes out as symbols of power, right? And who's got the power in a society, and that's not always showing up in a good way. So let's look, for example, in America, you can look at African American vernacular English, which is not always considered as educated or as like whatever. Why is that? Why is that? There's oppression in that. Like USA is not the only example in the world. It's just one that I could think of for English speakers. So please don't get angry at me. But it's a good example, I think, of what happens and how we assume that one accent is more valuable than another when it's not. In the UK, it's class where that often comes out.
Yeah. No, that's that's a great tip for people to keep in mind that.
Isn't it great? It's deep stuff. This is what I love about language. Language is identity. Language is people. Yeah,
and there's a lot of history and and like nuance in it all too, right? And it's important to understand what that is sometimes. Okay, if you were advising parents and schools on raising globally minded kids and digitally responsible kids, how would you build a language positive home for a kid and like a third culture kid?
This is tricky because I've never worked with kids. I've had like 3 kid students in my whole life. It's not that I hate kids. It's just every time an adult comes and says, "Can you tutor my kid?" I look at the adult and I go, "No, I want to tutor you." So it's just I don't know. It just gets me so excited, and I think so. It's not. I'm not a designated expert on this, but my view is that having a language positive home environment goes for the whole family. You can't just expect the kids to do something that you're not getting involved in or willing to do as an adult. So don't pressure the kids to be particularly good at something that you would show no interest in yourself. I think that would probably be how I feel about that. But I'm not an expert in terms of like bilingual education. I've heard about, I know about one parent, one language, debates and all that kind of stuff. It's just not my world, not quite my specialism.
Okay. No, it's I always try to. I got 2 young boys, so they're always kind of top of mind, and we're living out of Canada, and they're exposed to other things. So I always try to
definitely just like. I mean, Canada is bilingual if you look hard enough. So it shouldn't be. It's easier than you think, right? And especially now in this world, it's I think super easy. You can get really good games, like multilingual games and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I was the kind of kid where I would read the cereal packet. It's got on the side, it's got all the different languages, and I would just stare at those like age 7 or something. So I don't know, because I've grown up as such a nerd.
Well, we're coming up on time. I try not to make these more than an hour. So this has been great. But this is a fascinating conversation. Where can people find a little bit more about you and what you're working on?
Yeah. If you found these conversations interesting, I have got a podcast which is still fully accessible. I've got 242 episodes of a show called The Fluent Show, which does kind of go into the identity sides of things and answers questions about accent reduction and all that kind of stuff. So I did that for 9 years. Absolutely loved it. And please help yourself. It's just called The Fluent Show. And through that, you would also get to my website, fluentlanguage.co.uk. And if you are interested in AI in particular, it's ailanguageclub.com,
Okay.
Which is my project together with Josh. And we'd love to show you what we've got in there because I think it's genuinely cool.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to check this out. It sounds really interesting. And then you're also on LinkedIn too. I've seen you posting on there as well. I'll put all this in the show notes for people.
I have an Instagram. I don't really use it very much, but it's there.
Yeah, the standard.
So you can find me on the gram as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kerstin. This was a lot of fun, and you're a wealth of knowledge in this realm. It's it's fascinating, and thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Thank you for asking me so many questions that made me feel like I know what I'm talking about. Like you've tapped into my knowledge in a way that made me remember it's there. So that was really exciting.
Oh, that's great. No, it's quite obvious that you do know very much what you're talking about here. So
it's a great topic. It's just a fascinating topic. So hopefully all your listeners and anyone watching, will want to get involved in it too.
Yep. No, right on for sure. Awesome. Yeah, no, it's just a great way to expand your mind, and it always comes up in most of the podcast episodes. A lot of people are bilingual, trilingual, or even more so polyglot, and and it's fascinating. It's just something I'm interested in, even though I don't actually practice it too much. But I sort of scratch an itch, I guess, with when talking to people about it. So, alrighty. Awesome. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your week.
Yes, absolutely. Well, total pleasure. Thank you so much. And if you need anything else, just give me a shout.
Awesome, will do. Have a good one.